This is Jessica.
And this is Kelly. And this is the Chasing Brighter
podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. We are so excited. Today we have with us Darlene Brock. She is the president and co-founder of the Grit and Grace Project, author of Raising Great Girls, and co-host of This Grit and Grace Life podcast. While raising her two daughters, Darlene found time to produce award-winning music videos, manage recording artists, promote concerts throughout the world, and serve as COO of Forefront Records. In 2015, Darlene began to seek out women who understood the value of building relationships, nurturing children, pursuing careers, and finding self-worth. These women formed the Grit and Grace Project, which is a community of strong women who have come together to share life lessons learned and wisdom gained. Their faith is paramount to who they are and what they do. Through articles, videos, social media channels, and this Grit and Grace Life podcast, Darlene and her team offer you the encouragement you need to build strength in your own Grit and Grace life. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks. You just made me really tired.
It's a mouthful. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of life too. So
yeah,
appreciate you having me.
Well, we're so excited to have you today. I'm so excited. So I have a daughter and two boys, and Kelly has two boys. So I was so excited to read your book. And Kelly and I are huge bibliophiles, and we're always reading. And so I was so excited to read this. And so I know we have a lot we want to cover today, but I wanted to just touch on just a few things that I loved in your book. And one of them that I just absolutely loved was that you said that you are singularly the most influential person in your daughter's life. And I loved that. And so I would love to hear a little bit about I guess I think so much of where you're coming from is that experience of being a mom, right? And for you, how do you think that has played out for you, being so influential for your daughters and now spreading that out to women?
Loaded question, but we are the most influential. Now that's kind of terrifying. All right, when you pull it back, you go, okay, so I could really blow this.
Yes.
I could really destroy my daughter, but I'm telling you, that's not true. You won't always get it right. You won't always do it right. But the fact that you're committed to it, realizing that you will impact that little girl's life. You will be the one that your life will be reflected in hers. Most of the time, it's what you do, not what you say. So your influence comes in your everyday, and they watch you. Those little eyeballs watch you the whole time. You're the mom, you're the authority, but you're also their role model. And that's how you influence them. That's how you hopefully tell them what kind of woman they want to grow up to be.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I always tell, I no longer work with adolescents, but when I worked with families and adolescents, I used to say 90% of parenting is modeling, right? Like the behavior, like what you're doing and not so much, what you're saying. I think that's so true.
It is true. And, again, don't be terrified by it because perfection isn't what's required. I hope I repeated that over and over in the book, and I think I did, but you don't have to be a perfect mom to be a great mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you find that what tips or advice do you find yourself repeating over and over for moms?
Don't listen to all the voices, especially today. There's so many people, women, professionals, and I believe in people who know what they're doing, helping you do it well. But if you listen to every voice, there's an opinion about everything, how much your baby should sleep, not sleep, what they should eat, what they should not eat, how they should wake up, how they should go to bed. If you listen to all of it, you feel paralyzed. I think that that's just terrifying for every mother. The other thing I would say is don't sweat the small stuff. There's a lot of life that's the small stuff. My aunt told me that when I was first raising my kids, my daughters, and it was, there's a lot that you'll deal with that is unimportant. And I think the last thing is what I said earlier is you don't have to be perfect, but you're the right mom for your child. Nobody else is going to raise your child the way you can or should, because you're paired correctly with that child. So you may be analytical, you may be creative. It doesn't matter. You're the right mom for your baby.
I think sometimes we get, as parents, especially, so Jess and I are in that little older school age to high school. So this whole, like, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to be like, okay, they're going to be adults. Like, you got to raise them to be good humans. And you talk about, when you said like not sweating the small stuff, part of the challenge, I think, is figuring out what is the small stuff? What's the important stuff? Like what are some things, it doesn't matter if they make great, like all A's, or, what are those things that, help our listeners kind of sift through that?
You're not raising Einstein, at least most of us aren't. So, C's are perfectly acceptable. D's probably not if it's something they could get a better grade in. But the reality is, on the grade side, the majority of CEOs in America are C students. They grew up as C students. What you're trying to do is raise character. Mm-hmm. You're wanting your kids to have integrity, to have a work ethic, to be responsible, to be kind, to be honest. Those are the things that you want. So there are times you bend the rules. If you have a curfew for your child, but they come to you and give you all the reasons why they need to be out later because they've got a job, they won't get off till this hour, there's a late movie of something they wanted to see so badly, or they're going to their friend's house, this is the only window, let them. They have a job. So you really have to look at everything individually. Mm-hmm. If it's helping them become the human you want them to become, then give them grace. If it isn't, then you're still the parent. You kick their hiney too.
Yeah, I think that's so true. So Kelly's oldest is 12, and then my daughter's a freshman in high school. I'm surprised. I guess we'll just see how it plays out. Like I feel like I was kind of like I was helicoptering.
Get a T-shirt
a lot. Well, that's parenting. I'll see how it plays out. That's what I'll say. But like I feel like I kind of maybe borderline helicopter parenting. But I'm giving her a long leash. Like I think she makes good choices, and so what I'm doing for her right now is like give her a long leash, and then if she messes up, we'll reevaluate. But she makes good choices, and I trust that she makes good choices. And so
you're still driving her around everywhere,
right? So no, that's what I'm saying. That's why we'll see how it plays out. She does not have keys to a car at this time.
I told my daughters that I will absolutely trust you until you prove to me that I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it's going to be a long, hard road to earn that trust back. So you better think about it before you get there. So I think trusting your kid is absolutely right. They need to feel your confidence that you believe they're going to make good choices. They're going to do a good job. Knowing, I don't know about you ladies, but as a teenager, I didn't always make great choices. I didn't always do the right thing. Knowing they'll probably make some of their mistakes, but that's okay. Because as long as they're things that don't change the trajectory of their life, it's just a mistake.
Absolutely. On the scheme of things, lucky for us, the choices that I made that were questionable were nothing that put me in harm's way or anything. I mean, we grew up in rural Kansas, so we were driving at like 14, and we were very independent. I don't know whether that was good or not.
In some way. I didn't want to. I didn't want to drive. I was afraid I was going to get arrested any minute. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But I've been listening to your podcast. There's so many episodes that I love. But what do you think inspired you to begin creating content for women? And it runs a gamut, right? Relationships, lifestyle, faith, motherhood.
In addition to being my two daughters who made me deal with women, I loved historical women. When I was in middle school, bizarrely enough, I read every biography about women that was in the library. Got checked out every single one because I thought I wanted to be inspired. I lived in a small town in Indiana that didn't have much inspiration. So I wanted something bigger and greater. And I read every book. But then, my music career basically took me to working with almost all men.
Yeah.
My peers were men. The bands I worked with were male, which I really liked. And at that time, as an adult, I kind of thought women were more complicated, and I didn't, men were easier hangs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, I kind of disconnected from a lot of female relationships. Then I retired and went from the music business and I have a lot of belief in women. I have seen them accomplish so much. I remember what they could do. And I believe that their strength is unparalleled. A woman's strength is absolutely unparalleled.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tap into it. At the same time, my faith is incredibly important to me. And I ran across a verse in the Bible that said the older women are supposed to teach the younger. Now, I denied the fact that I was an older woman. Okay. Not going there. But we are all older than someone else, and our life experience can help another woman. So I started Grit and Grace Life because of that, because I think women teaching other women the things that they have learned from their life experience is the most valuable thing in the world.
Yeah, that was so evident in your book. Like, I loved hearing the little what do I want to say, little like historical lessons about the different women or the different mothers. Because I think we look at parenting right now at a micro lens. Like right now, everything I do right now is impacting everyone in my child's life versus like pulling back and looking at the bigger picture. And so you give all those examples of women in history, of your women and your family in history. And then you're like, okay, like let's pull back and look at the big picture and see how things kind of happen for everyone. So I loved all those little blurbs. And Kelly, you love biographies.
Yeah, I love biography. No, yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And I am definitely always trying to pick up any story I can. I mean, even to your point about one of the things that, Jess, did you read that Rise Sister Rise book? Or it was like,
no, it's
you
on my
carry
list.
With you the history of the women who came before you. And
So
just
true.
that is so powerful. And, I think Jesse and I had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with our grandmother who lived to be in her 90s. But just like, it was, I think we were in awe. We had a lot of girl cousins too, but we were all in awe of her, just everything she had gone through and just her grace and her grit and the stories that she could tell. And to your point, she never sweat the small stuff. And she laughed at us all the time. And, it was just funny, probably her seeing her grandkids raise kids and just how we freaked out about unnecessary things.
Yeah, but she also, I think, recognized it's a different time, right? Like she would talk about it being a different time because we all had careers. And, she lived in a town where you kind of raised each other. She was one of 12 and everybody kind of helped raise each other. And we don't really have that as much anymore.
Yeah,
so she recognized our struggle too, that it is very different. But yeah, no, we're really, really lucky to have those relationships with her too. What do you think for you, Darlene, about your history or your family history has kind of brought you to where you are today?
Like you ladies, it was my great grandmother who was an incredible influence on my life. She mirrored everything that I would want to be. She stood strong in hard times, but she always laughed about it. Then the flip side, to be honest, my mother was an incredibly difficult woman. She was a challenge, as a lot of women find that their relationship with their mother can be challenging, and mine was. But it also made me strong because it made me determine who I wanted to be. So I don't think it's just the perfect example of the woman you want to be. Sometimes it's the imperfect example of the woman you don't want to be.
Yeah.
And how you want to shape your life a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so wonderful. You were able to have that. You said it was your great grandmother.
Mm-hmm, it was.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I know you spoke about her in the book. I do. I love that too. Right. It's just taking inspiration. Right. And then that's what you're doing now. Right. Is creating your own content that's so inspiring and sharing lessons that you've learned. Why do you think your messaging is important?
Mm. Isn't that funny? Because we all sit back and go, we want to accomplish something. And so why is it different or why does it matter? For me, it's because I think in this generation of women, they doubt themselves all the time. They doubt their relationships or their mothering or their careers or the combination of them. Can I be a good mother and have a career? Or can I have children and be all these other things? And am I even good at it? And this other person looks better than I do. I think we have this, and the world that we're surrounded with right now is hitting us on every side about how to do it right. So it just increases our discomfort and our doubt. And I'm big on, of course you can. Of course you will. And I think it's really important that women who have gone through things can look at other women and say, I've walked through a divorce and I'm still standing and I'm stronger. And here's why. I have lost a child, or I've got a child who's a prodigal right now and I'm still standing and here's why. And I think that for us as a collective at Grit and Grace Life to be able to tell our stories, share both of our heartbreaks and challenges, but our joys too, can help other women go, I can do it. I can be that strong woman, even though today I don't feel like it. I can and will be that strong woman. And that to me is one of the most important underlying values of what we do.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like, Jess and I feel like we're kind of, now that we're in our 40s, kind of trying to come into our own. And you realize that I've learned that I'm hard on myself. Harder on myself than anybody else, and trying to, instill that self-compassion and stop comparing, myself and whatever I'm doing to others, and just be in my own life and be happy. And I think coming out of when you're in those years, especially when your kids are infants and things, and you're just trying to keep a human alive, it's common, I feel like, to lose oneself and not really realize like what do I enjoy doing, what makes me happy, and do I want to work, do I not want to work, what is it that fills my cup? And that's a lot of those things are really hard to navigate, especially if you're feeling alone.
Oh, you're so right. And I think where you ladies are, it is both a wonderful time and a transitional time, because your kids are growing up. You've learned a lot already about the world and life, and you've almost lost yourself sometimes at this place, Yeah. And I think it's a rediscovery of, all right, I don't have to be pulled every single way. I really need to get back to me. I really need to find confidence in me. And it can be as simple as, I don't like cleaning toilets, so I'm going to hire a housekeeper just because I need one thing off my plate. Whatever it takes to kind of take off the layers and then say, I'm just going to focus my life on what matters to me. I think it's a really important season. And, my 40s were some of my best because honestly, I threw away a bunch of the stuff that wasn't important and then focused on what was, and ended up looking back going, those were great years because I got a lot of good out of it by doing that.
Yeah. And I loved that. That reminds me, it's interesting too. So there's a 7-year difference between my oldest and my youngest. So I feel like my youngest, like I'm a whole different parent. Right. And so my poor oldest, because I think, we're part of that, parenting generation where they need to be in all the things and the best of the things. And I remember having this talk with Kelly. I think our kids were like 3 and we were like, our kids are going to go to top 20 colleges. We had this very serious talk. And now we're like, yeah, they'll find some, whatever. But I just felt like we were so intense, and I'm trying to like untangle it and walk out of it. And I loved that part in your book where you said every child is talented, but every child does not possess every talent. And that you were talking about exposing your children to different options and seeing what lights them up. And that was just like light bulb moment for me. So now I'm like, okay, I'm forcing my 8-year-olds in piano right now because my older 2 took piano for 6 years, and he has to take piano for 6 years. And he loves music. He's really good at piano. He's in a class with way older kids. He does not care about piano right now. And every time he's like, I don't want to go. I hate piano. I'm not practicing. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you had a whole thing in there just about spending time with your kids, and so I'm like, he will practice piano with me and we can play together. I can read piano music. His piano can be him and I playing the piano together.
Mary had a little lamb for years.
Yes. And I'm serious. Like, we're doing some hot cross buns. We're learning chords right now. And it's perfect. Like, but I think for this generation of parents, we feel pressure for our kids to succeed because we have choices and resources and, so it's like, what do you think is helpful for us? Because I'm inspired right now. I'm talking to you. I've been preparing for you. How can we keep reassuring ourselves, that none of that matters,
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And one thing you need to think about, or every parent needs to think about, is I want my child to be able to, or want to talk and hang with me when they're teenagers. Okay.
Yeah.
When they're in the 12 to I'm going to college, even in college age, I want a relationship. To do that, you have to have breathing room. You have to have room with your toddler, with your elementary school, with your, you have to have breathing room. You can't always be driving to the next event or forcing the next lesson. You have to lay in the backyard at night and look at the stars together. Yeah. You have to get in the car. I used to get in the car, and I may have mentioned this in my book, but I used to get in the car with my 12-year-old daughter, and she was not a talker. So to get something out of her, I had to create a scenario that she talked. So we would be on our way to her her Wednesday night church service that she went to, and then I went to church, and we would go to Sonic. I know, bad food, all of that. I don't care. It's fine. But we would sit in the car and she would eat her corn dog, and she would talk because she couldn't get out of the car. She was eating garbage food she liked. Yeah. And we would sit there for 30 minutes and she would talk. And she continued to talk to me because we had created us time. Mm-hmm. Not just event time, not just project time, not just homework time. We had created us time when she was very small and all the time she was growing up. So she continued to talk to me, not always, not about everything, but I kept an open line of communication with both of my daughters because I didn't fill their world with everything else.
You notice both of us were a little like deer in the headlights on that. Like that's the hardest part of like where we are right now as moms is forging those relationships in a natural, not forced, threatening way.
But we do have a village, even though we live across the country from each other. We have each other, our kids talk. And so I know there was like a situation where Kelly was concerned maybe her son wasn't telling her things, but I had my daughter and I was like, hey, I need you to like message your cousin. And so we were able to figure out everything that was going on. Then he eventually, I think we were a little hyper about it, but right at the right moment, he eventually came to Kelly when he was ready to talk to her about it.
I was able to leverage it in a non, divulging the mole sort of scenario.
Yeah, we need to keep our mole in there.
So. Figuring out how to ask some key questions. I think that's
okay. They can't listen. They can't listen to your podcast. They can't.
No, they probably won't.
No,
they don't.
Well, they're the boys. The boys won't. But Gabby listens occasionally. But that's okay. She knows she's the mole. That's okay.
She's our hero. Yes.
And ladies, this isn't pressure to do this all the time. This is. It only takes a few instances of time with your child, and you may have months where they're not really opening up. Then you plan a road trip with just that child. You just plan a Friday to Sunday. You're getting in the car with me and we're going to go someplace we're not even telling you where. and make it where they're in the car with you and you create events and fun that's just the two of you, and you'll be amazed at how all of a sudden they open up. All of a sudden they communicate things that they didn't before. It'll happen.
Yeah. Well, and maybe also part of it, hearing what you're saying too, is, am I putting too much pressure on that I'm not going to be their like deep confidant, right? It's sort of like figuring out what is the relationship where they can feel like I'm safe. I am here to protect them. I am here to help them. And I'm also like their mom, and figuring out what is that relationship is sort of like where we're navigating. And I'm realizing, because my husband was like, you're not going to be his best friend. I was like, I don't want to be his best friend. But then I was like, am I thinking that I am deep down, but I'm not? Because I mean, he's still like 12. He doesn't like shower regularly. Like there's not like a level of like, I don't want to get too close. But it is like, what is the relationship to what you're describing? Like, and how does that come about naturally?
Yeah. No, good point, Kelly, because you are the mom. They'll have lots of friends. They'll have lots of confidence. They'll have people that they share their life with when they don't share it with you. But there's no role like a mom. There's no important position to have than a mom. You don't have to be their friend while they're growing up. You want them to communicate with you and share their heart when they're ready, but you don't have to be their friend, because if you're their mom and they know you love them, you'll always be there for them. You have their back no matter what. You would never turn your back on them. You will stand by them no matter what they do or what they walk through in life. If they know that, when they're grown, I can tell you from my experience, they will be your friend. You will be mom friend. They will be daughter friend. But you'll never get to that place if you abdicate the role of mother. You never will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is such a key, kids feeling confident and having that unconditional love.
Yeah.
I think that is so key. And I think that's where I've seen it too, where if you pull back, it's like, did you tell your kid you loved him that day? Well, if you did, they're steps ahead of a lot of people. Because I can tell you in my office, being a trauma therapist, most of the people I see were not told that they were loved every day, or they did not feel loved. And so I think just saying that is like, they're just, miles ahead of their peers sometimes,
Oh, you're so right. And even if they roll their eyes and stomp upstairs, you can say, I still love you. I don't care.
Yeah. Totally. That is the nice thing about having the 7-year difference is, even though with my tween and teen, I do have one that loves me and still thinks that I hang the moon. So it's like, he's still there. He's always like, they'll do something and he'll be like, I love you, Mom. And he like runs over. He's like, you're the best. I love you. It's so funny. Like,
so keep having kids. Is that what you're saying, Jess?
No. Yes. If there was someone that did not know how to fill their cup in another way, that would be their choice, but we are done over here. But that's so true. And I think, you were talking about that too, as far as relationships, and in your career, you had kind of let relationships with women lapse. Mm-hmm. What has helped you create new relationships and maintain new relationships at this stage?
Good question. The fact that I entered back into this world through Good and Grace, it almost forced me to create a community of women that I hadn't had in quite some time. And it's my writers, my team members. We have about 15 team writers that write for us regularly. Then we have guest writers, but we are a community. Now we live everywhere, as you ladies live nowhere near each other. We live everywhere from Florida to California to Canada, Texas, everywhere in between. But we are a legitimate, strong community that completely supports one another. And I have gained strength, aside from some of my personal relationships and family, I have gained strength through these women, this community that we forged. And they are every age, they are every race, they are every, they're just every box. You could just go through it, but they have collective hearts to help one another. And in that, I've found strength. I can say I'm leading the parade, but the truth is I need the encouragement of other women. I need women to say, hey, Dar, you got it. Hey, Dar, don't get too tired. Hey, Dar, we know that this is a lot we're all trying to do together, but I believe in us. I believe in you. And it's amazing what that can do for you.
Yeah. Yeah. What goes into you identifying maybe who you're going to interview for the podcast or what you're going to focus on at that time on the website? Where do you kind of find that inspiration from?
The guests that we bring, I generally bring in women who are what I consider interesting and have a lot of life experience that they may not have shared with a lot of people, but they feel like they're supposed to, because I think that's important. Then as far as the subject matter, Julie and I, that's my co-host, Julie Bender, and she and I basically have had lots of conversations through the years in what we struggle with, what we see our friends struggle with, the different subjects that women are dealing with in life. And we just try to tackle those. We try to unpack them and find not all the answers. Sometimes we'll look at each other and go, man, we will give you ladies nuggets of what we think will help you. But, we're giving you nuggets to hopefully you find the whole gold mine. But, we feel like we want to help you and help us at the same time deal with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as I was, even going back through some of the older episodes, because I only more recently started following you guys, but the content is there's so many podcasts that offer a similar content, but it's to your point, women are constantly going through these same challenges. And I think it's always great to hear different perspectives and things that have a little bit of a spin on them. I was just telling Jess, we were looking at our web analytics, and one of the things that was like the most traffic on our blog was making friends. And I know that you guys have talked about that a little bit on your podcast too. And it's just interesting as women, and especially all of us who, love our tribe and definitely try to continue to have those relationships that still resonates, with people. And I know that's just an example of many topics that I think, to Jesse's point, it's like how, aside from just, I don't want to say recycling, but we find that we grab the topics that are relevant to us at this time, which are the same topics that maybe were relevant to you 4 or 5 years ago, right? And then maybe things kind of trickle in that are more hot topics. I don't know, Jess.
Yeah, I think the same felt needs will always be repeated. And, when we were in the music business, I had some of my artists that didn't want to sing the same hit song over and over and over and over and over again because they would say, maybe I need to, change it up a little bit. It's like, no, don't change it up a little bit. But what people need sometimes is to be reminded of the same heart thing, the same need. Our basic needs don't change all that much. Yeah. So it doesn't hurt to repeat them. It doesn't hurt to address them again. I think, in fact, every time you do, or every time Julie and I do, we personally discover a new layer to the same conversation, that maybe we gleaned a little bit more information or gained a little more understanding that helped us unpack it differently, or maybe the same, but we needed to hear it again. It's like saying to each other as women, of course you're strong and you can do it. Well, I may need that once a week.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to repeat the encouragement and hit the felt needs. It didn't hurt at all. In fact, I think it's exactly what we all should do.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite episode or interview that comes to mind? I loved the one on sex trafficking. That was a while ago. I don't know if I know Kelly's like, I don't want to listen to that one.
I don't like sad things. But.
So Kelly doesn't like sad things. And because of the nature of me being a social worker for years and years and years, I'm like, I can take that content and not be traumatized by it. But I thought that was so eye-opening and fascinating. And the vulnerability of your guest was just so incredible. And I loved that one. But do you have, a guest or something that really kind of just stuck with you, or was kind of maybe, I don't know.
Oh, my word. I'm at 209 episodes right now.
Yes, wow.
So, yeah,
you figure out a way to get out of this question if you.
I love them all.
Yeah.
What I will say, if you want to just go back to this Grit and Grace Life and touch on some of our ones with Dr. Zoe. I don't know if you ladies can listen to them or not, but she writes for us. She answers.
Yeah, I've seen some of her articles.
Yeah, she's solid. So if you need just life advice, she's real good at that. But I have to give props to my co-host, Julie. And if you listen to any of her life story, do listen to it, because she's walked some roads. We've walked some roads together, and one strong, lovely young woman.
Yeah. Yes, I have read a lot about Julie's story, and I think for me, and I know Kelly too, it's first we're just curious, right, about humanity. But then also I think, and maybe it's because of today with social media, and we're comparing and we're saying, oh, look at that beautiful home, or that person's beautiful life, or look at that, they must have everything. And it's like, you don't know the path that person has traveled, right? You don't know the story behind where they are today. And so we love to share those stories. And I love that you are sharing those stories and exploring what it goes into, because I think happiness is kind of hard fought. It's not like you're just like blessed and you're like, oh, look, I'm blissful, right? I think it's a choice. You have to work to it, and you have to forgive, and you have to move on. And there's, so much you need to do on your journey to, I think, be a happy person.
Oh, I think it's true. And I honestly think the most difficult challenges we faced in life and have gotten to the other side really brings the most peace and contentment and strength and self-worth, because it's grown us. It's shaped us.
100%.
And it may not show in our everyday because we look like we're put together. But what has put us together are the things that tore us apart and rebuild us.
But at the same time, when you're in those moments, you're not sure how you're going to get out of them. And so it's, I guess that's the interesting part of life in that way,
It's true. And I think part of what I want women to know is you can be in those moments. You can crawl in bed. You can eat a gallon of ice cream. You can hurt and grieve or be angry. You can have all of that, and there are seasons of that. It doesn't have to be tomorrow I'm going to get over this. It can be I am walking through. You can't go around a problem. You cannot go over a problem. You cannot avoid a problem. The only thing you can do is get through it. Yeah. And that takes time. That takes focus. That may take support and help. And that's all is needed to get there. But what I want to tell you is take your time, do what's needed, but you will get to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah, I think that there are times where it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Yeah. But when you can hear stories of triumph, I think that kind of helps us to believe more that we can get through it. Was there, not necessarily in a difficult time in your life, but kind of looking over your life, do you have some nuggets of wisdom or advice that was given to you that you find yourself repeating, or that you find that was really helpful for you?
Yeah, I'll give you a specific. I mean, I've had lots of different challenges, as we all have, but I lost my father to suicide. All right. And it was like somebody shot a cannonball through my body, and the hole was as big as a cannonball would create. And I thought I don't know how this will ever get stitched up. I don't know how I will ever heal from this. I don't know how I will get past this. And the very beginning of my journey was at his memorial service, where the pastor said, "Don't mistake the man for the moment." And I think that applies to all of us, that we don't mistake our entire life for a moment in time or a week in time or a year in time. It is simply that. It's part of our lives. And then you give it time. Then you give it time to move on and heal and grow and learn. And it doesn't change, like for me, it doesn't change the fact that every Father's Day I still miss my daddy, and he's been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
But what it does is I've gotten to the other side of it with hope, and I've had the privilege of telling my daughters all about him. And in fact, I named one of my daughters after him. So, it's like you bridge your hurt to the strength of today and going forward. And to me, that's how you cope. That's how you grow. That's how you change into the person you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. I have not heard that before. I have not heard that one before, but I think that's incredibly profound. It can help.
Yeah.
I think it can be applied to so many situations, because we're not perfect. We're not perfect, and we're going to make mistakes. I'm going to continue to make mistakes. I'll make more mistakes, but it's like that one thing does not define you, right, as a whole. And, we're very complicated beings.
Yep. True.
Absolutely.
Are there anything special that you're loving right now? Like, what are you kind of reading, watching, listening to these days?
Oh, I'm such a confused person sometimes. All right. What I'm watching and listening to. All right. I'm watching $1 Million Listings. Okay. So that's really base. But who in the world has a car a garage that has an elevator that takes their car to their bedroom? I mean, seriously, you just have to watch it for that reason alone. I am reading a book called Hearts of Fire. It's about women who have risked their lives for their faith and their beliefs, several real life women. And I find it just incredibly heartbreaking and inspiring at the same time.
Yeah.
And as far as watching, I'm watching Outer Banks. Have you watched that one?
Oh, yeah. We just started in our house.
Yeah.
We're behind.
Have you?
Love it.
Well, I feel like, okay, what am I? Like a teenager that wants to go find gold or something? I'm a little confused on what I consume.
You're not alone on that one. I don't know what it is about the Outer Banks, but I agree.
Yeah.
Well, my daughter's the only one of her friends that hasn't watched it. And so I was like, well, let's start watching it together, because her friends were like saying, you've got to watch this show. So then we started watching it together. And then my husband was like, I want to see it too. So now we're all watching it. And then also what I'm watching, which is embarrassing. And again, right, we don't have to make any sense, but I started watching Dance Moms.
Oh, I love it.
And I mean, that's so old, but I'm like, my kids are like, okay, I'm like looking up, look, this is them now. Right. And so it's funny, because I think a few years ago I would be like, those moms are crazy. But now I'm like, I can see her point and where she's coming from. And you can see, because, they're like, my daughter's going to be a star. And now they are a star. And so it's like,
okay.
So it's like, hey, she wasn't crazy. So, but that was, sometimes we need some escapism, right? Like you're saying with $1 Million Listing, and just because everything can be so heavy. I know I like to read, I call it brain candy. I'll read like a couple heavy books, and it's like, okay, my brain needs a break, because I can't always read such heavy stuff. And also when you're reading books where you're trying to be a better human, books like if a Brene Brown book or something, you're trying to be a better human, that is like, okay, that's intense, and I've got to make some changes, and I've got to work on myself. And so it's like, I need a break.
Yeah, sometimes I need to watch other people just be bizarre, so I could just go, okay, life's all right.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It has been such a pleasure having you on today. We are so glad, that you took some time out of your busy schedule with all the hats you wear to join us for a chat today.
Pleasure on my part too. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for listening and joining us today.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Chasing Brighter or on our blog, chasingbrighter.com.